When I arrived in Kalamazoo, it was October, and the war was still on. Gold and silver stars adorned pennants above silent windows of white and brick red cottages. It was a cold night when I left my room at the hotel for a usual speaking engagement. I walked a little way. A heavy wind coming up from Lake Michigan was icy on the face, feeling like winter straying early in the northern woodlands. Earlier that night, I had addressed a college crowd, mostly women. It appeared that they wanted me to talk about my country. They wanted me to tell them things about it because my country had become a lost country. It was not hard talking about our own people. I knew them well and I loved them. And they seemed so far away during those terrible years that I must have spoken of them with a little fervor and a little nostalgia.
I have a question. Is there much differences between our women and American women?
Well, I do not know much about American women, except that they look friendly. But the differences or similarities in inner qualities such as naturally belong to the heart or to the mind, well, it wasn't easy to make comparisons.
I'm a Filipino. I'm just a Filipino farmer out in the country. I left the Philippines more than 20 years ago and have never been back. Never will, perhaps. I want to find out, sir. Are our Filipino women the same like they were 20 years ago?
First, tell me what our women were like 20 years ago.
Yes, but you see, you're too young. 20 years ago, our women were nice. They were modest, they wore their hair long, they dressed proper, and they went for no monkey business. They were natural, they went to church regularly, and they were faithful. It's... it's the men who ain't.
Well, it will interest you to know that our women have changed. But definitely, the change, however, has been on the outside only. Inside here, they are the same as they were 20 years ago. God-fearing, faithful, modest, and nice.
I'm very happy, sir. By the way, I'm Celestino Fabio.
Bienvenido. Bienvenido Santos. Do you care to step into the lobby with me and talk?
No, thank you. You're tired. And I don't want to stay out too late.
Yes, you live very far.
I got a car. And besides, will you do me a favor, please? I want you to have dinner with my family out in the country. I'd call for you tomorrow afternoon, then drive you back. Will that be alright?
Of course. I'd love to meet your family.
You will make my wife very happy.
You flatter me, honestly.
She'll be very happy. Ruth is a country girl and hasn't met many Filipinos. I mean, Filipinos younger than me and cleaner looking. We're just poor farmer folk, you know? And we don't get to town very often. Roger, that's my boy. He goes to school in town. A bus takes him early in the morning and he's back in the afternoon. He's a nice boy.
I bet he is. I've seen the children of some of the boys by their American wives. And the boys are tall, taller than the father, and very good looking.
Roger, he'd be tall. You like him. I have to go now. Bye.
Bye!
Ruth can't believe it. She can't believe it. I say to her, I'm bringing you a first-class Filipino. And she says, oh, go away, quit kidding. There's no such thing as first-class Filipino. But Roger, that's my boy, he believed me immediately. What's he like, Daddy? He says. Oh, you will see, I say. He's first class. Like you, Daddy? He says. No. I laugh at him. Your daddy ain't first class. Oh, but you are, Daddy, he says. So you can see what a nice boy he is. So innocent. Then Ruth starts griping about the house, but the house, it's a mess. It's always a mess. But you don't mind, do you? We're poor folks, you know.
Aren't those apple trees?
Yes, those are apple trees. Do you like apples? I got lots of them. I got an apple orchard. I'll show you.
Those trees are beautiful on the hills.
Autumn's a lovely season. The trees are getting ready to die, and they show their colors, proud-like.
Unfortunately, no such thing in our country. Celestino reminisced about his lonely past and the pain of being an exile. As the car's noise drowned some of his words, he shared his story for the first time in years, remembering his youth and thinking of his home. In that moment, fear and pain were momentarily absent, but it would come back later. In this old Visayan town, the streets are narrow and dirty and strewn with coral shells. Have you been there? You could not have missed our house. It was the biggest in town, one of the oldest. You see, ours was a big family. The house stood right on the edge of the street. A door opens heavily and you enter a dark hall leading to the stairs. There is the smell of chickens roosting on the low-topped walls. There is the familiar sound they make, and you grope your way up a massive staircase. The banisters smooth upon the trembling hand. Such nights are no better than the days. Windows are closed against the sun. They close heavily. Mother sits in her corner looking very white and sick. This was her world, her domain. In all these years, I cannot remember the sound of her voice. Father was different. He moved about. He shouted. He ranted. He lived in the past and talked of honor as though it were the only thing. I was born in that house. I grew up there into a pampered brat. I was mean. One day I broke their hearts. I saw mother cry wordlessly as father heaped his curses upon me and drove me out of the house, the gate closing heavily after me. And my brothers and sisters took up my father's hate for me and multiplied it numberless times in their own broken hearts. I was no good. No good. I was no good, but sometimes, I miss that house. The roosting chickens on the low-topped walls. I miss my brothers and sisters. Mother sitting in her chair, looking like a pale ghost in the corner of the room. I would remember the great live posts, massive tree trunks from the forests, leafy plants grew on the sides, buds pointing downwards, wilted and died before they could become flowers. As they fell on the floor, father bent to pick them and throw them out into the coral streets. His hands were strong. I have kissed those hands many times. Many times. We're here. A dog barked loudly as we approached. A fat blonde woman stood at the door with the little boy by her side. Roger seemed newly scrubbed. He hardly took his eyes off me. Ruth had a clean apron around her shapeless waist. Now, as she shook my hands in sincere delight, I noticed shamefacedly that I should notice. How rough her hands were, how coarse and red with labor, how ugly. She was no longer young, and her smile was pathetic. Ruth got busy with the drinks. She kept coming in and out of a rear room that must have been the kitchen. And soon, the table was heavy with food. Fried chicken legs and rice, and green peas and corn in the air. Even as we ate, Ruth kept standing and going to the kitchen for more food. And Roger, he ate like a little gentleman.
Isn't he nice looking?
You are a handsome boy, Roger.
Perfect, Daddy. You know.
You're...
I don't know who she is. I picked that picture many years ago in a room on LaSalle Street in Chicago. I have often wondered who she is.
Ah, and the face wasn't a blur in the beginning?
Oh no, it had a young face and was good.
Ah, I cried picking out a ripe one. I've been thinking where all the scents of apples came from. The room is full of it.
I'll show you. Every day, I take some to town to sell the groceries. Prices have been low. I've been losing on the trips.
Oh, these apples will spoil.
You don't have to worry, since we'll feed them to the pigs.
According to Celestino, a few years ago, before Roger was even born, he had an attack of acute appendicitis during the deep winter. There was snow everywhere. At the time, Ruth was pregnant and not too well herself. At first, Ruth didn't know what to do, so she bundled him with high clothing and put him near the stove. She then shoveled the snow and practically carried him on her shoulders, dragging him through the newly made path towards the road where they waited for a mail car to pass by and nearly froze to death.
Go back to the house, Ruth! You'll freeze to death!
No! No, I won't leave you! I won't leave you!
After a while, the mailman finally arrived, who knew the couple well and helped them to board the car. He then took the sick man to the nearest hospital. He said that Ruth stayed in the hospital with him. According to him, she slept in the corridor outside the patient's ward.
Ruth's a nice girl, like our own Filipino woman.
I guess I won't be seeing you again. Tell Roger and Ruth that I love them.
They'll be waiting for me now.
Look, one of these days, very soon, I hope I will be going home. I could go to your town.
No, well, thanks a lot. But, you see, no one would remember me now.
Goodbye.